For the next few weeks, we're going to take a look at forgiveness, and we're going to look at the great stories of forgiveness. Sometimes we can understand a concept or think we understand a concept, but we understand it in a fuller and deeper way when we're put into a story where somebody had to forgive somebody else, and what that all meant and what the implications were for these people, because it really hits home in our lives too. It's not so easy to forgive sometimes, although it should be, it isn't. Because we find ourselves in highly emotional situations. We have this keen sense of justice and we want people to get what they deserve, which sometimes hinders our forgiveness and our ability to forgive one another. And so let's take some time and look at some of the great stories of forgiveness and kindle in our hearts a heart of forgiveness for other people too. So the first character that we want to look at is Joseph. Now, you might remember a little bit about the story of Joseph, but allow me to refresh your memory. Joseph was one of Jacob's sons. Jacob had 12 sons, Joseph being one of the younger of the sons. And Joseph had all of these great dreams that his brothers were going to bow down to him one day. And as you can imagine, his brothers didn't take that so well, especially when he told them that. And so they had this building resentment for Joseph that culminated in them selling their brother into slavery. They were going to kill him initially, and thankfully they were talked down from that, and they just sold him into slavery, and then they told Jacob, their father, that Joseph had been killed by a wild animal. That's a pretty intense thing to happen, right? It's a pretty intense thing for the brothers to do. Joseph is sold into slavery at the age of 17, ends up in Potiphar's house, then ends up being thrown into prison for a while, and eventually, 13 years later, when he's 30 years old, he finds himself as one of the top officials in all of Egypt. God had surely blessed him throughout these years. 13 years have passed since Joseph was sold into slavery. Do you think he was still harboring resentment? Do you think he had forgiven his brothers? Now his brothers hadn't come and asked for forgiveness. But had Joseph in his own head prepared himself to forgive his brothers? If they came, if they showed up, would he forgive them? Well, they show up. They show up when Joseph is in charge of Egypt, and they come and they ask to buy food. And the end result of that is Joseph welcomes his brothers. He reveals himself to his brothers. He gives them a hug. He invites his father Jacob to come move down to Egypt with the brothers, and they give them a piece of land in Egypt to inhabit. Joseph forgave his brothers. Now, perhaps that seems unbelievable to you. In fact, it seemed unbelievable to the brothers at the time, too. They couldn't believe that Joseph could have possibly forgiven them. And so after Jacob, their father, died, they were scared. They were scared that Joseph hadn't actually forgiven them, that he was still harboring this resentment in his heart, but just to appease their father, he was holding off on retribution until his father died. But after Jacob died, the brothers, scared that Joseph hadn't forgiven them, came to Joseph and made up this story that their father's dying wish was that Joseph would forgive them. And to which Joseph responds this: "Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then, don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children." And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them. Joseph had certainly forgiven his brothers. He wasn't expecting anything more from them. He had forgiven them a long time ago. And he was able to forgive them because he knew God. It said, "Am I in the place of God? If God can forgive me," Joseph thought, "then I can forgive my brothers." And that's where our forgiveness always stems from. It always stems from God. I hope this story is an inspirational story of forgiveness for you, that you might be able to find that person in your life. Maybe it was a long time ago that they harmed you or they hurt you in some way, that you might be able to find it in your heart to forgive them. Joseph took 13 years for him to see his brothers again and to forgive them, but the forgiveness was still very important, both for Joseph to give and for the brothers to receive. I pray that God fills you with a heart of forgiveness and works in your heart to forgive others and to seek forgiveness from others.